Social capital is collapsing, and everyone knows it. The real-world relevance of atomization is immediate and measurable. Trust has fallen across families, neighborhoods, professions, and institutions. Coordination costs rise. Informal cooperation dries up. Everything that once worked through habit now requires contracts, surveillance, and moral theater. Robert Putnam gave this decay its proper name. Social capital is the stock of trust, shared norms, and reciprocal obligation that allows societies to function without constant enforcement. When that stock depletes, every system compensates by becoming rigid, expensive, and joyless. Low trust does not look dramatic, it looks procedural. It looks like endless credential checks, defensive emails, and social spaces designed to prevent liability rather than foster belonging. People still meet, they no longer build. High trust societies generate surplus energy. People volunteer effort before being asked. They tolerate friction because they expect continuity. Low trust societies hoard energy. Every interaction becomes a negotiation. Every collaboration carries an exit plan. This shift changes who participates. Builders withdraw. The cautious advance. The talented grow quiet. The litigious grow loud. Deadpan fact. You cannot produce beauty at scale while assuming everyone nearby is a potential adversary. The collapse of social capital is not an abstract moral failure. It is a structural failure with cultural consequences. It determines whether complex projects can form, whether apprentices can learn, and whether shared standards can survive contact with ego. When trust erodes, ambition shrinks to what can be done alone, decay follows. Cultural sterility is treated as a mystery because its causes feel impolite to name. People prefer stories about markets, algorithms, or moral decay. The truth sits closer to the ground. Sterility follows the collapse of shared effort. When trust falls, culture stops compounding. Each generation inherits fewer living forms and more dead artifacts. What remains is imitation without conviction, remakes without risk, satire without targets, style without obligation. This condition appears across domains. Film recycles plots because large crews no longer share confidence in one another. Architecture repeats safe shapes because coordination across trades has become adversarial. Music fragments into micro scenes that never mature because nobody expects permanence. So the society that cannot keep a book club alive struggles to produce an artistic movement. The left laments sterility as the result of capital pressure. The right blames moral laxity. Both diagnoses skip the operational layer. Culture fails when people stop trusting each other enough to fail together. Novel forms demand patience. Patience demands confidence that today's losses will not be exploited tomorrow. Without that confidence, creators retreat into self-contained expression. Art becomes therapy. Design becomes branding. Craft becomes content. The myth of the lone genius grows loud during sterile periods. It flatters isolation and excuses collapse. Flourishing cultures elevate workshops, schools, and lineages. Sterile cultures elevate personalities. This is not an aesthetic complaint. It is a warning signal. Cultural sterility marks a system that can no longer reproduce itself symbolically. When symbols stop renewing, politics fills the vacuum with noise. Sterility is not caused by a lack of talent. It is caused by a lack of trust in shared futures. Creative output scales only when people risk dependence. That risk rests on trust. Without it, talent folds inward, and culture stalls at the size of a single nervous system. High trust societies allow creators to borrow time, tools, and reputation. They permit unfinished work to circulate. They forgive early failure in exchange for later mastery. These conditions let ideas pass through many hands and return improved. Low trust societies reverse the incentives. People guard drafts. Credit disputes arrive before collaboration. Contracts replace custom. The result is work optimized for defensibility rather than excellence. And nothing kills a rehearsal faster than a lawyer in the corner. Complex cultural forms emerge from cooperation across skill sets. Theater requires writers, actors, stagehands, and patrons who expect continuity. Architecture requires shared standards across trades. Even digital creation depends on invisible norms about reuse, attribution, and good faith. When trust erodes, creators retreat to what can be controlled alone. Solo output multiplies. Collective ambition collapses. The culture looks busy, while producing little of lasting weight. This dynamic explains the fixation on self expression. It is not a philosophy, it is a survival strategy. People express what they can defend, they avoid what requires reliance. Trust also determines scale of aspiration. Low trust environments breed small dreams executed perfectly. High trust environments breed large dreams executed imperfectly and refined over time. Civilizations advance when people accept temporary vulnerability in pursuit of shared greatness. Sterile cultures refuse that wager. They choose safety over synthesis. Creativity does not die from censorship first, it dies from suspicion. When no one expects others to carry weight, nothing heavy gets built. The supporting structure of creativity is rarely formal at first. New cultural forms emerge inside scenes rather than organizations. Scenes depend on repeated contact, informal norms, and the expectation that participants will still be there next year. When social capital collapses, scenes dissolve even if institutions remain standing. Universities continue to issue degrees, museums continue to host openings, grants continue to circulate. What disappears is the dense middle layer where people meet without agendas and build shared taste over time. That layer cannot be mandated, it must be trusted into existence. Deadpan observation. A scene cannot be scheduled by a diversity office. Low trust environments convert scenes into networking opportunities. Every interaction becomes instrumental. People show up to be seen, not to belong. Once that shift occurs, seriousness drains out. Risk looks foolish. Loyalty looks naive. Historical creative bursts followed the opposite pattern. Renaissance workshops bound masters and apprentices through long exposure and mutual dependence. Modernist movements formed in cafes, studios, and small journals, where reputations traveled faster than money. These settings punished bad faith swiftly and rewarded commitment quietly. Scenes require memory. Memory requires continuity. Continuity requires trust. When trust fails, scenes fracture into temporary clusters. Each cluster burns hot and vanishes. Nothing accumulates. No standards solidify. Everyone starts over while insisting they are revolutionary. This failure is often misdiagnosed as generational decline or technological distraction. The deeper cause is structural. People no longer believe others will share cost or credit across time. Creativity needs places where effort compounds socially. Without those places, talent circulates without landing. Sterility is not produced by hostile gatekeepers. It is produced by empty rooms. When trust collapses, incentives tilt toward visibility rather than durability. Work that can be verified at a glance outcompetes work that matures slowly. Spectacle wins because it asks nothing from the future. Craft depends on deferred judgment. It assumes an audience willing to wait, peers willing to correct, and institutions willing to preserve standards beyond a single cycle. Low trust environments cannot support that patience. Everything must prove itself immediately or disappear. This shift explains the dominance of irony, provocation, and shock. These strategies thrive in thin social environments because they demand no shared background. They travel fast, offend cheaply, and expire on schedule. They are perfectly adapted to distrust. Craft moves differently. It relies on apprenticeship, repetition, and correction by people who expect to meet again. When relationships are transient, critique feels like attack. Standards feel like exclusion. Excellence feels suspicious. The result is moralized mediocrity. Work is defended on grounds unrelated to its quality. Criticism becomes taboo. Praise becomes inflationary. Nothing sharp survives. This condition harms creators more than audiences. Without trusted peers, creators lose calibration. They drift. They repeat themselves. They mistake affirmation for growth. Talent plateaus while output increases. Civilizations do not decline because they lack expression. They decline because expression detaches from obligation. Low trust cultures mistake freedom for greatness. High trust cultures understand that constraint shared across time produces majesty. Spectacle fills the gap left by trust. It keeps attention occupied while culture starves.
The right has treated the creative class as hostile terrain for decades. Artists are assumed to be decadent. Designers are dismissed as frivolous. Intellectual labor is framed as parasitic. This posture feels principled. It is strategically ruinous. The creative class does not align with the left because of ideology alone. It aligns there because the left, for all its failures, speaks the language of social scaffolding. It promises grants, scenes, and permission structures. It acknowledges that creativity requires collective support. People follow the money before the moral. The right speaks fluently about markets and morals. It speaks poorly about coordination. As a result, it seeds the entire symbolic layer of society. Culture drifts leftward, while the right debates policy in empty halls. This has consequences beyond art. Symbol makers define legitimacy. They shape narratives that decide which institutions feel natural and which feel suspect. A movement that loses cultural producers loses its future vocabulary. The irony cuts deep. Many right wing goals depend on dense civil society, family formation, local institutions, voluntary association. All require trust rich environments where creative coordination thrives. The interests already overlap. The right fails by treating creativity as ornament rather than infrastructure. It protects property while neglecting the conditions that make creation worth owning. It praises tradition while starving the living processes that renew it. Creative people are not allergic to order. They are allergic to environments where cooperation is punished and loyalty looks foolish. Ignoring the creative class has not preserved tradition. It has outsourced imagination to opponents who use it aggressively. The alignment opportunity sits in plain view. Rebuilding social capital serves creative interests and right wing aims at the same time. Both depend on durable relationships, shared norms, and institutions that reward continuity. Creators need trust to collaborate across time. The right needs trust to sustain family life, local authority, and voluntary order. These are the same requirement expressed in different dialects. Policy matters here because structure shapes behavior. Zoning that allows shared workspaces. Tax treatment that favors long-lived associations over churn. Legal environments that privilege apprenticeship, patronage, and cooperative ownership. Appellations that subsidize small creators who participate in cultural continuity. These are civil infrastructure. The creative class responds to environments that make seriousness viable. They cluster where effort compounds and reputation travels through memory rather than algorithms. When those environments exist, ideology softens. People invest where they expect to stay. The right often frames culture as downstream from politics. The reality runs both ways. Cultural producers decide which political claims feel plausible before voters ever encounter them. Rebuilding social capital reframes the relationship. It shifts the conversation from moral scolding to shared construction. It replaces resentment with responsibility. It gives creatives something to defend. The left filled this vacuum by default. It offered support without demanding durability. The result was dependency without loyalty. The right can offer something stronger. Mutual obligation grounded in place and time. This is not a messaging problem. It is a systems problem. When the right builds structures where creative people can cooperate without fear, alignment follows naturally. Trust attracts talent. Talent shapes culture. Culture determines what survives. A cultural renaissance does not begin with self-expression. It begins with shared obligation. That truth is unfashionable and decisive. Modern culture denies the link between cohesion and creativity because cohesion sounds limiting. Artists are taught to fear structure as constraint rather than support. The result is expressive abundance paired with cultural thinness. Everyone speaks, few are heard across time. Deadpan observation. Noise is easy to produce. Continuity is rare. Historically, great cultural periods fused creativity with duty. Medieval guilds bound craft to moral codes. Renaissance workshops tied ambition to lineage. Modernist movements demanded seriousness and sacrifice from their members. None treated art as a personal diary. Social cohesion does not smother creativity. It disciplines it. It filters vanity. It rewards endurance. It allows standards to form and persist long enough to matter. The current denial of this relationship keeps both sides stuck. The left romanticizes expression while dissolving trust. The right defends order while neglecting the cooperative environments that give order meaning. Each guards half a truth and wonders why culture decays. The path forward reconnects what was artificially separated. Creativity thrives when people expect to remain bound to one another. Cohesion thrives when people build things worth sharing. These forces reinforce each other or fail together. This alignment offers something rare, a chance to replace sterile culture wars with constructive rivalry over excellence, a chance to make beauty, skill, and seriousness socially contagious again. Civilizations do not renew by shouting louder. They renew by rebuilding the quiet structures that let people create together without fear. The opportunity remains open. The cost of missing it will be visible everywhere.